The following program is made possible by the friends and partners of Creation Today. Welcome to the Creation Today show, where we bring together interviews with experts and solid Bible teaching. Your co-hosts, Eric Hovind and Paul Taylor, affirm the ultimate authority of God's Word, the truth of creation, and why it matters to you.
Maybe there's a message in the DNA from aliens from outer space.
So literally, matter gave rise to information which is not made out of matter. Christ is the one who changes the world. They know God exists. Welcome to the Creation Today show, whether you're joining us from right here in America or from one of our many locations around the world that view our show online at the internet, creationtoday.org. I'm being a little bit redundant there, aren't I, Paul? Online on the internet? That's the same thing, isn't it?
On the internet, on the line.
Via your computer, smartphone. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. We're so thankful that you're here. Our desire is to help equip you with the information you need to defend your faith in God, which in this age of skepticism, Paul, it's getting kind of difficult for many Christians to do, isn't it?
It certainly is, but it's very important for us to know what we believe and to have the confidence to be able to talk about it. Doesn't mean that you need a degree in science necessarily to be able to talk about these things, but we need to have confidence in the God who created things and to know that He has all the answers, even if we don't have them all at our fingertips straight away.
Got a testimony for you this morning from Jim. Jim says, thank you so much for doing a fantastic job and continuing to spread the creation message. The Creation Today show is a huge success. Well, Jim, I'm glad you think it's a success. Thank you very much. At least I think that means he's enjoying the content that we're covering.
I hope so. It's very good. We enjoy doing the show and we enjoy presenting this information to you. And if you want to keep these shows going, then we value your prayers, we value your testimonies like that, and we value your support. And you can find out about how to support us effectively by going to our website, creationtoday.org.
Excellent. You can make a donation there and help support the Creation Today show. We're loving the fact that so many networks around the world are airing this because it's literally putting this in people's homes before they even know they have the questions. And so it's literally teaching them answers before they even know what the questions are. So it's stopping the impeding progression of atheism and of relativism and of skepticism that's going viral today, Paul. A lot of people, I was just at the University of Florida, and the number of young people that would pack into a building all just to praise a man and to reject and mock God. It was fascinating. So it's growing by leaps and bounds.
To praise a man and also to praise the creation, because they were concerned about, we joked about this last week, that Bill Nye said that having photos of Pluto would change the world. And I think that the book of Romans, particularly in Romans chapter 1, has something very pertinent to say on that subject, doesn't it?
Yeah, Christ is the one who changes the world. They know God exists.
They know God exists. And they also, it talks in Romans 1 about those who worship the creation instead of the Creator.
Yeah. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're worshiping this creation instead of the Creator. Well, we've got a great show for you today. Today we want to talk about what is the what is the message of DNA in the bottle?
Yes, and I came across a video clip recently that was talking about information. We're going to see that in the second segment, but information that's in the DNA, talking about it as a message in a bottle.
Pretty fascinating.
Because
we are the bottle.
That's right. Because I'm so old, I can remember the song that goes with that, but I won't sing it just at the moment.
Man, I was looking forward to a special here.
But where is the message in the DNA bottle? And of course, DNA is all about information.
What's DNA stand for again?
Well, it doesn't stand for the National Association of Dyslexics. It stands for deoxyribonucleic acid.
Yes, there we go, DNA.
Which is, of course, the information-carrying molecules in our body. Lots and lots of information on those molecules. People have been working on decoding them for the human genome and for various other creatures.
I was going to say, this in itself is fascinating, isn't it? What they've discovered in literally the last 50 years,
Yes.
would you say? In 50 years, what they've discovered about what's in our DNA has just blown scientists' minds.
And indeed, the discoveries in the last 5 to 10 years have been far greater than those in the previous 40, because things have been going on apace very, very rapidly indeed. And we know that there's information there. We know that there's an alphabet, really, 4 different bases within the DNA molecule. It's like 4 letters. It's like a 4-letter alphabet, and the information is contained within those. And the information within DNA obeys the various laws of information science. Now, in fact, information science is something that's been worked on a great deal by a German scientist called Dr. Werner Gitt. And in his book, In the Beginning Was Information, which we carry at creationstore.org.
Great book, by the way.
Yes, Dr.
Because this in itself is an absolute death blow to the evolution worldview.
It is. He talks about information science and how it works. And he shows that information is like another entity other than matter and energy. It's a non-material entity. In fact, his first theorem says the fundamental quantity information is a non-material entity. It's not a property of matter, so that purely material processes are fundamentally precluded as sources of information. What he means by that is that matter doesn't give rise to information by itself.
Yeah, but you can have information right here on matter. You can get a CD like this and you can put information on it.
You can indeed. Well, supposing then that we had a blank CD like this.
Okay.
And we had another CD that had been made out of this and had got a copy on it of some software, Microsoft Windows, for example. Okay. If it had been imprinted onto and burnt onto a CD like this, and you put the two on chemical balances, what would be the difference in mass between the two? How heavy is the information in Microsoft Windows?
It's none. Nil.
It's none at all, because it's information. It's to do with the tiny little mirrors that you've got here, whether they're that way or whether they're that way. It's to do with you've got ones and zeros, basically. That's the way it is. And you've got loads and loads of little mirrors in there. So if we leave a number of these blank CDs around, if we just leave them there like that, then maybe by the end of the show, one of them will have magically produced a copy of Microsoft Windows on itself that it will just have developed from nothing. Because that's basically what the theory of evolution says. It says that the information in DNA has arisen by chance from nothing.
So literally, matter gave rise to information which is not made out of matter.
That's true. And there is less information in a copy of Microsoft Windows than there is in DNA.
Quite a bit
So the
less,
chances of one of these getting a copy of Microsoft Windows on itself is a lot greater than the chances of DNA forming by itself.
Wow.
Okay.
Now, I've heard that there's enough information in your DNA that if you were to type it out, it would fill enough books to fill the Grand Canyon 40 times. That's how much information is in your DNA. And all your DNA would fit in like, what, 2 tablespoons?
That's correct. That's correct.
Unbelievable. So they're saying that DNA came about by chance, and we're going, hold it, information doesn't just appear by chance. That doesn't happen.
No.
So how did it get on there?
Well, the information requires intelligence, doesn't it? It would need you to be a programmer to program the thing from scratch again, or to have a copying program that would be able to put that on. So there needs to be some input from you. There needs to be an intelligence behind the information. And we're going to see what the implications of that are in a couple of news items.
Aren't you?
Oh, yes.
You guys got to watch this clip. It is hilarious. Oh, we got to take a break. We'll take a break, and then we'll show you this clip.
You're watching Creation Today with Eric Hovind and Paul Taylor. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back. You're watching the Creation Today show with me, Paul Taylor, and with Eric Hovind. And we've been talking about information. We've been talking about the information in DNA.
DNA, National Association of Dyslexia. I like that one. I got to use that next time I talk.
I don't think at the moment any of those CDs have turned into copies of Microsoft Windows.
That's a start. Throw them in the computer here. And well, I got a Mac, so it wouldn't work here.
It wouldn't work on a Mac anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know which one, the Mac OS, whatever it is.
Maybe a copy of Mac OS Lion or Maverick or something like that will have appeared.
I don't know which is the best example of intelligent design out of those possible operating systems.
Well, it's definitely not Microsoft Word. You know they're Microsoft Works.
If you're watching Bill Gates, please just ignore my colleague here.
Yeah, donate anyway.
But you know, this whole business of information science has been applied in some scientific circles, scientific in inverted commas. For example, I'm referring to SETI, another acronym.
Oh, yeah.
SETI being the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence.
It's blank. Man, all right.
See, one of the... So there's nothing on that,
Nothing on this. It hasn't evolved information yet.
No. So I'm afraid our experiment today has not produced evolution yet.
Paul, we've only given it a little bit of time. It's only been a few minutes. If we left it for millions of years, Paul.
That's right.
Millions of years. Surely if it sat here for a few million years.
So when the Earth was hot 4.5 billion years ago, some blank CDs could have been left then.
And little lasers would have come from the mud and actually imprinted information on there. Paul, you just have to have a better imagination, man. I mean, come on, what is your problem?
Tell you what, one thing we can definitely say about evolutionary scientists is they have good imagination.
Speaking of good imaginations, you got to show them that clip.
Oh, yes. Well, let's just set the scene, because SETI is the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Okay. And one of the questions that's occurred to me very often is, how do they know, or how would they know, when they get a message from outer space? How would they know?
That it should be some kind of code. It should be some kind of, they should be able to see that it's basically codified.
You should be able to recognize the code, even though they wouldn't be able to speak the language at that moment. So they should be able to recognize the code. And one of the things that people have said is, if you see a code with non-random, clearly defined systems codifying the information, you'd be able to recognize that. And that is an indication, a clear indication that there is an intelligence behind that. Now, is there anything at all that in the universe that has such codified information and that is a clear evidence for intelligence?
Anything in the whole universe?
Don't know anything we've been talking.
Obvious code.
Got it.
What?
DNA.
DNA.
What we've been talking about.
That's true. That is codified information.
And what's interesting is there have been some news items recently that some scientists in Kazakhstan are doing some work on this. They're saying that maybe DNA actually contains the message in the bottle, some information from an alien source who came to Earth maybe some billions of years ago and started to put living DNA there. But there should be
right
code.
in here.
The message should be in here. And this is the video clip that you've been talking about. There's this amazing clip with a British scientist, and he's talking about this very particular work, this message in the bottle in our DNA. Let's run the clip now.
So one idea I've had is that maybe the bottle are living cells, terrestrial organisms, and that the message is encoded in DNA. Viruses are continually infecting organisms on Earth and uploading their DNA into the genomes of those organisms. So there's a well-understood pathway for getting information into DNA. And we're littered with it. Our own genomes have got huge amounts of this junk that's climbed on board from viruses over evolutionary history. So if viruses can do it, ET can do it.
So that's the scientist, Dr. Paul Davis. And,
Brilliant.
Brilliant,
Paul.
The message in a bottle that SETI have been searching for all this time is indeed in our DNA. It's clear evidence of intelligence, and if you've got clear evidence for intelligence, that obviously means aliens.
What an odd conclusion to come to. Why would they come to the conclusions, Paul, of aliens when they see evidence of intelligence? seems to me like they're saying, look, we're not finding it in radio waves. And Paul Davies agrees. He says, look, I'm not saying that this is true that this really happened, but the bottom line is there's a group of scientists that's what they're spending their tax dollars studying right now.
Yes.
Is that message in us? Did aliens plant information in us just like viruses do? And by the way, he said something in there that I don't think is true. He said, we got lots of junk DNA in us. And this could be, if we look at all this stuff, we could find this message from aliens, this message in the bottle.
There's a very interesting article, in fact, on the Answers in Genesis website by Dr. Purdom, Dr. Georgia Purdom, and it's about junk DNA. You can find information there, and it's very interesting because, junk DNA, one of the interesting things is that quite often as people are researching this, they find that junk DNA, certain items of junk DNA, are not junk after all. Right. And it reminds me very much of the old ideas about vestigial organs. Vestigial organs are obviously big organs that are left over by some process of evolution. A number of these were mentioned, of course, at the famous Scopes trial. And out of all those, many, a couple of dozen examples of vestigial organs mentioned during the Scopes trial, how many of those organs are still thought to be vestigial today in round numbers?
There's a round number for you.
0.
None of them. Wow.
All of them have had uses found for them. And in fact, really, the definition of a vestigial organ really should be, this is an organ system that we haven't found the use for yet.
That's correct.
And I would hazard a guess, this is my opinion, take it or leave it, but my opinion is that we will probably find something similar with junk DNA. That maybe the junk DNA is basically some DNA whose coding we have not yet discovered the significance of.
And that is interesting because every single time we study these things, we find that, look, there actually was a use. They thought the appendix was vestigial. It's not. Now, you can live without it,
yes,
but that doesn't make it vestigial. You can live without both your eyes, both your ears, both your arms, and both your legs, and one of your kidneys. But that doesn't mean they're vestigial, right?
That's right.
Okay, I mean, it gets kind of difficult to live under those circumstances. So being able to live without something is different than being vestigial. And we're saying the same about this DNA. Just because we find what they are referring to as junk DNA, that doesn't mean that it's been uploaded by a virus or an alien and is there as nonsensical information. It very well could be that we just haven't codified. We don't know what it's there for yet.
Yes, and the whole subject of DNA, of course, is something that's very complicated to study, and neither you or I are experts on this subject. Oh yes, we ought to. It's coming up to the end of the second segment. We better just check, actually, whether we have now got an operating system
I took a new one over here
onto this particular disk. And what's the verdict on there?
Blank. You've inserted a blank CD.
So we're still, at the moment, we can report that at the moment, during this program, the evolution of information has not yet happened. But watch this space.
Yep. We got a little break. Hey, during the break, I tell you what, let's have one of the guys running. Let's microwave this with, put some radiation on it and see if we can develop some information. Can somebody do that?
I think that would be a great thing to try.
We'll be right back after this break. At 21 years old, I was a self-professed Christian, but I didn't know God. I had been raised in church and in a Christian home and Christian school and enrolled in a Christian college. I was around church and religion literally all my life. So why didn't I know God? Growing up in a Christian home, I got really good at pretending to be a Christian. I didn't really have a desire for righteousness. Instead, the only thing I pursued was trying to make everybody think that I was a good person and give the perception that I had Christ as my Savior. I just wanted to look good among my friends. Welcome back to the Creation Today show with Eric Hovind and Paul Taylor here, talking about information theory. Paul, we had the guys go to the microwave, and we have officially added some information to that disk right there. It now has information on it.
That's right. That will have really speeded up the evolution of the information on there.
Yes.
And we should now not only, in fact, it will probably have gone well beyond Microsoft Windows, and I suspect this has probably got Linux Ubuntu edition on there now.
Nice. I wouldn't be surprised if this has the human genome sequencing of a couple of the people on planet Earth right there on this disk now that we've done
Almost certainly.
I am not going to put this in my computer.
Really?
No, because it's not used to things that are this bad being put into it, just by the looks of it. I think if you have a Windows machine that you'd like to put this into, I'd be more than happy to allow you to try it out. But I don't think I'm going to try that on mine.
No. Okay. Well, we'll leave it there then.
Well, who knows? Maybe over the next few million years that will evolve and eventually have information on it, but I'm not going to test it right now.
We're having some fun with this, but of course we're making the point that the chances of these things evolving the information of an operating system is actually, there's a great deal more chance of that happening than the information on DNA being produced. But you know, people have been talking a lot about DNA lately, and we talked about the news item that was saying that maybe there's a message in the DNA from aliens from outer space. And if that wasn't crazy enough,
it gets crazier. I
mean, we have talked a couple of times on this show before about the idea that maybe human DNA and chimp DNA are 98% similar.
And they're not.
And they're not.
Right, depending on what you compare.
It does, because you're talking about certain types of the DNA, certain parts of the DNA.
Well, I gotta say, I'm sure there's many of you out there who have grown up, and maybe you heard this in school. Apes and humans share 98% similarity with our DNA. And the problem is, the more we've studied that, the more we realize that's just simply not the case. But
yeah, I mean, yes, humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes, and chimpanzees have 24 pairs of chromosomes. Right. Comparing the two, there is, let's be honest, there is a slight difference on chromosome 2 on a human. To some people looking at that, it looks as if it's been fused from two other chromosomes. And so a big deal is made about this, saying, well, when the humans and chimpanzees evolved from their common ancestor, there was a fusion here in the humans. The thing is that that sort of fusion, if it could possibly have occurred, would be the only one of its example where these chromosomes fused end to end. You know, so not only do they fuse, but one of them has to flip over at the same time.
And here's the problem. You don't get major chromosome changes in things unless you hybridize and try to put things together that really don't belong together. That's when you start seeing some radical differences, which has led a scientist to actually try to figure out what could have hybridized to make humans.
Absolutely. And you know, this whole business about chromosome 2, by the way, is debunked in the Answers Research Journal. I would commend our friends at Answers in Genesis and at the Institute for Creation Research, because the Answers Research Journal is published free on the Answers in Genesis website. I like to print them out. This is this year's volume 6.
And you read that, don't you?
I do read this. And on page 367 of volume 6, that's this year's volume, one of our friends from ICR has published an article in the Answers in Genesis Journal, Dr. Jeffrey Tompkins, who we met recently when we visited ICR in Dallas, Texas.
And this is one of how many creation journals are out there now? There's
about 3 or 4 of
journals that are out there. Scientific journals.
Scientific peer-reviewed journals. And so
evolutionists say we don't do that. Yes, we do.
And of course, actually, we know that the standards for getting into this are higher than in
a standard
in standard peer-reviewed journals. But Dr. Tompkins from the ICR has got an article called "The Alleged Human Chromosome 2 Fusion Site." And he shows how it's not possible. You need to look at some of the science here, but it shows how it's not possible that fused. But when people are talking about this similarity, there's been some interesting other news items on possible similarities. You see, it may not be that we share a common ancestor with chimps after all, according to a recent news item.
Yeah, Dr. McCarthy he's a geneticist, and he's actually asking the question, well, if humans and chimps aren't as similar as we thought, what produced the humans?
Yes.
And he's come to an interesting conclusion. Paul, I'm going to let you say it. Can't say it.
Somebody's even asked a question of this particular so-called science expert in an Australian newspaper asking about this particular news item, saying, I heard that pigs share 98% of human genes. Is this correct?
Oh, so if you got pigs sharing human genes and chimps sharing human genes, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Yeah, that we evolved from pigs.
We evolved from pigs.
I mean,
And chimps.
I mean, I've met some people that would suggest that. It's interesting, isn't it? George Orwell had this idea, didn't he, in the book Animal Farm, which I find absolutely fascinating. The very last paragraph of Orwell's book Animal Farm. You know, there's Napoleon, the pig, and you know, his various other pig cohorts, and they're meeting with the humans who run the neighbouring farms. And the last paragraph says this: 12 voices were shouting in anger. They were all alike. No question now what had happened to the faces of the pigs. The creatures outside looked from pig to man to pig to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which. Oh, dear me. Of course, Orwell wasn't talking about the evolution of pigs. He was actually making an allegory on state socialism and how that works, and the sort of tragedies of the Russian Revolution. That's what it's really about. But it's interesting, isn't it? People are now coming up with this scientific idea. Scientific, just put inverted commas around the word scientific there in your head. The scientific idea that maybe we are so similar to pigs that we evolved from pigs.
And there's a geneticist from, forget where he's from, Dr. McCarthy, he's a geneticist, he's actually put forth the idea that maybe it was both chimpanzees and pigs that gave rise to human beings.
We are basically a cross between chimpanzees and pigs.
How did that cross take place, you might be wondering? Yeah, we're wondering the exact same thing. I'm not even going to imagine past that. But they say literally a hybridization, a cross, a mating of a pig and a chimpanzee could have been what produced mankind. And I just look at that and I go, wow, how far outside? Paul, let's have a moment of silence. I think intellectualism has just died.
I think so.
There.
That's
wow.
a long enough moment
Long
of silence
enough for them. Unbelievable. This is literally what they're teaching. That this is the lengths that they will go, Paul, to reject the idea of in the beginning God created, designed, built, put the information inside of this DNA bottle. They're doing anything they can to avoid looking at that information and saying, let's look at the designer. Let's look at the one who did this.
G.K. Chesterton said, when man stopped believing in God, he doesn't believe in nothing, he believes in everything.
That's right.
If you want some honest answers, contact questions@creationtoday.org.
Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Do you need the tools to defend your faith? Visit our websites for up-to-date content. Attend one of our live events. And shop online at creationstore.org. We are Creation Today.